Yes, let us
This time,
continue.
it is my pleasure yet again to bring Mr. Barath back with, well, I'm gonna let him do the introductions. With Mr. Locklear.
Thank you, Dr. Grimsey. Again, just a great day of opportunities to talk more about the new school on Camp Easter Road. As the board has had the opportunity previously to take a look at the first draft of the student assignment area for the new school on Camp Easter Road. Since then, with Numerex, staff has met with the advisory committee and also held a public forum at Vast Lakeview Elementary that some of you were able to attend and see the engagement that happened. It was a great evening, great opportunity to hear from the public. And then, of course, during that period, just like previously discussed and we're moving forward with, there was the website portal, which provided valuable feedback as well. So since all that, we've been working with Numerex. Again, we have Mike Miller and Laura Evans here. And they have continued to develop and fine-tune the student attendance area into what they're going to review with you today. And so, not to take anything away from their thunder, I'll turn it over to Laura.
All right, thanks, John. Madam Chair and Superintendent and members of the board, good to be back with you again today. Seems like a lifetime ago because we did have a hurricane and some other things have happened since then, but it is good to be back. Today we're going to just go over a little bit of background information, particularly previous discussions and the guiding principles that we're following. We're going to go over the feedback we received, the online, as John just mentioned, the advisory feedback, and the meeting with the parents. And then we're going to present to you draft 2 and talk through that. And always looking at the larger picture down the road to 23, 24. And then remind you that in the appendix, there's always more detailed information than what we share in the presentation. So never forget about the addenda. All righty. Last we were with you was September 4th. And on September 20th, we had a well-attended public engagement meeting. It was good. We got good feedback, good discussion, a lot of parent participation. It was an excellent meeting if you were there. We met with the Advisory Council on September the 21st, and that was well attended. And if you remember, the dates for those meetings kept jumping around because of the storm, but in the end, we had good attendance. So really appreciate parents and staff coming out for both of those meetings. All right, the guiding principles, and we're going to talk about guiding principles every time we come before you because this is what we go by. You worked hard on these. It's the direction you gave us to develop an assignment plan. You chose 4 major headings: balance, planning, efficiency, and community. You want us to try in everything we do to balance utilization. We're opening new schools. We're adding seats. We've got crowded schools. We want to use the taxpayer money wisely and balance utilization. At the same time, try to balance program opportunities and student demographics if we can. We want to operate efficiently, and so that's always in the back of our mind. We want our planning to be data-based and forward-thinking. We want a stable assignment plan. We don't want to move children year after year. That is never good, okay? And then we want to be transparent to the community, and we want the community to be involved. But at the same time, the community has needs and the district has needs, and so there's a balance there as well. We've said this before, we've got the 4 guiding principles, but there's no priority. Sometimes they overlap, sometimes they conflict. Sometimes you can't meet one, but you can meet another. And all of it is dependent on what we've selected as impact schools. So just keep that in the back of your mind. All right, we've narrowed the feedback on draft 1 down to 3 areas. Are you flipping the slides? Mm-hmm. Thank you. 3 areas. We heard a lot of feedback about future development. Are we keeping in mind this development's going on, or this development just added 200 more homes, or talking about doing this or talking about doing that? So we want to talk today about how we use the forecast that's provided by NC State on the future development in the development of this assignment proposal. Then a lot of feedback was about the Whispering Pines community. Draft one, it's a large community. We've known that from the beginning, it's large. Draft one, a lot of the feedback was, can you keep us together? Is it possible to keep us together at one school? And so we're going to bring you some data today to share what it looks like if we try to keep Whispering Pines together at one school. And then there was feedback around what is the purpose of the new elementary school on Camp Easter Road? What was its purpose, and are we working toward that purpose, okay? And so those are the major feedbacks that we heard. So now I think the thing that you've really got to be careful about as we went through the feedback, we bounced back to the guiding principles, okay? Can you keep Whispering Pines together? Look back, see what the data shows. Does it fit with the guiding principles? And so Mike's going to walk you through each of the analysis we did on this feedback.
First, we'll talk a little bit about a question that popped up in the community forum, and I believe it also popped up on the online questions too, is are we using data that accounts for future developments? And just to clarify for the parents that are inquiring about this, the forecast, the data that we're using in all these attendance area scenarios is based on ORED's presentation given to the board last January. The land use study report is currently available to the community via this hot link. And I assume this will be available online so they can just push a button and there you go. It's a PDF document, and buried inside that document is a table of all the developments that were approved at the time of the study as of January 2018 that are accounted for in the numbers that we are using. So the way the process works is ORED goes out, collects that data from municipal and county planners, compiles it, puts the numbers together, and locates it spatially on the map to determine which neighborhoods are impacted and therefore which schools will be impacted. So that data was already compiled, rolled up in a package before Numerics got a hold of it. So be assured that as accurate as that data was on January 2018, that's the same stuff we're doing now. And there was a lot of questions from that. We tried to address them, but I thought it deserved a clarification at this meeting. So
Let me expand on that if I might for just a minute.
You could move the mic, John, please.
The question was more specific to the Carolina development off of Airport Road, because that's received a lot of attention in the paper recently with the change of taking what was an 18-hole golf course and potentially converting it over into residential. The development was originally approved for 495 homes with the golf course. And to date, there's only 102 homes that are built back in that division, subdivision. And the property has changed hands a few times, and the current owner of the property had petitioned to the Planning Board of Southern Pines and to council to allow them to convert the golf course areas into developable properties for homes. And that would take the 495 number up to 702 for approved living establishments in there, and that would consist of single family and some multifamily homes. And so you're looking at approximately a 207 home increase in that development. And as with everything, we continue to monitor that, and we'll be evaluating these impacts onto the study that ORED did, coming back to the board every other year and seeing how are we tracking. It doesn't mean that 702 homes will be built in the first year. This could be part of a extended year build out. Again,
To date, there's only been 102 homes, and to get to 702 is another 600 homes that would need to be built there. We continue to monitor that. We'll continue to look at the pace. We'll be working with ORED throughout this process to look at the decisions that have been made and that Numerix is making in these. So we're considering it in our numbers, and again, it all falls into when will it all be built out.
John, if I could, just to clarify, when ORED did its study, then the Carolina was evaluated at that higher 400 number.
495.
And so there was already a difference of 300 and some. So should they go from 400 to 700, that bottom line is, are the homes going to be built or not? Those homes may be built, but even if they are, it's still below the number that ORED used to project. The only time that may become an issue is if the number of homes exceeds the 400, the larger 400 number. And nobody is projecting that's going to happen anytime real soon, because we look at how long it's taken just for the first 25% of the lots to get homes on them. So at some point, the staff, working with consultants, have to be measured, what we bring to you has to be measured at some reasonable standard here, on what we know. We have the best information available. We make that decision. And we haven't really drilled down to just how many students that would accommodate. I mean, they would be K through 12, 20% of them may go to charters and privates, and by the time we're done, that number is really not material to the decision that we have to make here by December.
That's correct.
Is that an accurate statement, John?
That's a correct statement.
Okay, just wanted to underscore what John said. Thank you.
I think what I take away from that is that that table is very useful, and I would encourage people to go take a look at it, because it does show the due diligence that was done in January of looking at all the planning documents that the county has in terms of developments and where they are in whatever phases they are in. It's a good table, and one that I'm sure will be updated every 2 years, is what I'm hearing.
That's correct.
Correct.
And just to tack something on the end of that, so when these comments came up about are the data that you're using encompassing all of these developments, it gave me the opportunity to go back and look at harder at the data, and I came up with some statistics that I think you should know. And so those new developments in various areas of the county are going to produce students. That's already in the forecast. The highest growth in the tables that we see is about 150 K-5 students entering Vass Lakeview over the next 5 years. And when I say 5 years, I'm saying from 2017 to 2023, okay? The data we're using is a baseline of 2017, because we just started 2018, of course. So by 2023, we're predicting somewhere around 150 K-5 students in the Vass Lakeview area. So just to give you a kind of a concrete idea of what these numbers are, and as we'll see later on in the data tables, the growth doesn't stop, probably won't stop in 5 years. So we expect continued growth in many of these areas past that 5-year window. So just keep that in mind. Another high growth area would be the base for the new elementary school. Based on the draft 2 scenario you're going to see today, we're predicting around 120 K-5 kids by 2023. Pinehurst is also a high growth area according to the data, with about another 120 K-5 children over the next till 2023, and Sandhills Farm Life with about 80 over the same time period. So measuring from 2017 to 2023, we're looking, and of course the ORED forecast is a 10-year forecast. For assignment purposes, we like to look at a 5-year thing to try to get the most accurate numbers that we can. But I thought you should know those numbers. Those are the 4 largest growth areas in the county. There's certainly some growth in Aberdeen. There's no question about that. But these are the ones that kind of pop up in the areas that we're concerned with right now. So, yes, there is growth there. It is already calculated in these scenarios through 2023. and it's likely that that growth is not going to stop in 2023. Any questions on that? So the next question that bubbled up was, is it possible to keep the Whispering Pines municipality intact? Can they go to one school or another school? And this, we heard this from many quarters, and it was a concerning enough question to go back and take a look at what the data tells us about this. So we ran 2 additional analyses to take a look at what would happen if Whispering Pines municipality went to Sandhills Farm Life completely, and what would happen to the numbers if the municipality went to the new school on Camp Easter Road. So what you're going to see is 2 different analyses. I call them Revision 4 and Revision 5. The first has Whispering Pines municipality assigned to the new elementary school. And if you look at the numbers that are kind of highlighted there with the red circles, those are the utilizations in 2019-20. And for all the scenarios we're going to see, we're assuming that this draft 2 2019 areas do not change. There's no subsequent movement after these, so the numbers stay consistent for comparison purposes. But we're looking at a utilization of about 74% for Sandhills Farm Life, and about 81% in 2019 for the new school. And as I mentioned, there is growth in those areas as well. So if you look at the utilization in 2023-24, you also see additional growth added on to both of those schools. And I'll call your attention to the other fields in this table, specifically minority range, from 35% at Cameron to a 19% at the new school on Camp Easter Road. Any questions on that one? Oh, yes, okay. Just to reemphasize, so the numbers that you're looking at here do not include any subsequent movement for the new elementary school to Southern Pines area. It is landlocked on no other schools are impacted in these numbers besides these 5.
Mike, I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
Does it mean that on the new Camp Easter Road Elementary School, does this mean that only Whispering Pine students will be there?
No,
Okay,
it does go a little bit to the outside. That's a very good
I
question.
want to make that clear that it wasn't.
Yes, correct, especially to the east. There's areas, they're large, they don't have a lot of students, but those are included. And there's also some areas to the west that are outside of the municipal districts that are included as well.
The goal here was the municipality,
Yes, sir.
to make sure that the municipality moved one way or the other together.
Yes, sir.
So in one case, you end up with basically the same situation, if not worse, at Sandhills Farm Life, if you leave the entire municipality at Farm Life with a brand-new school completely underutilized. The other option would be to move all of the municipality together. In that case, you end up with a school that's already over 80% with significant impacts in proficiency and diversity,
Yes,
and also questionable utilization.
yes. And once again, to clarify this, that 81% does not include any move to Southern Pines Elementary.
Right. So the students that live closest to it are not as likely to attend it. It
Correct.
limits our
Yes,
ability
sir.
to have
The new
those
school.
children that live closest to it
Yes, sir.
to do that. So again, this conversation that Mike and I are having, board members, is a simple matter of going back to our guiding principles.
Right.
So you as board members want to think of your guiding principles. To what extent do these distributions align with a balanced approach to your guiding principles?
When you talk about going east and west, what does that encompass? I mean, is that Vast Lakeview
No,
to
not
be
that
some of-
far. The Bass Lake View is virtually dedicated to that peninsula. We had to go so close just to provide any relief for Bass Lake View. So Bass Lake View does not change any from the draft 2 that you're going to see this evening.
Oh, okay, we will see that.
Yes, you will.
Yeah, neither one, this is, Mike's section here is responding to feedback. So we were asked to produce the outcome of research on what would happen if you kept the municipality together.
Okay.
And ultimately, we'll get to draft 2, but we want to do our due diligence in what we were asked to do for the purpose of transparency. These are not representative of draft 2.
Thank you.
That's correct, yes. This was,
okay.
there's one moving piece in these analyses, and that is the Whispering Pines municipality.
Just to answer that one question.
That's the one variable.
And I would note that it would take the Camp Easter Road School from the lowest utilization to the highest of 68%, to the highest utilization of 81%. And I know we're not talking much about districting impacts beyond this area, but it would constrict the options that we would have, as Dr. Grimsey says, for the students very close to the borderline.
Correct.
Yes, sir. Especially if you look beyond 2019-20, when you're looking at a utilization of 91% in this area. Yes, sir.
At the risk of stating the obvious, this is not a municipal elementary school, it is a county elementary school. And so it is there is an interest in evaluating to what extent an entire municipality's worth of children can move one to the other, but the board has to evaluate that in the context of its broader guiding principles. As a county school board, then where shall you fall? But right now, what Mike is doing is going through those questions that were raised, and so ultimately, we want to get to the recommendation, so.
Yes, sir.
If you would, Mike.
I've got one more piece to it. So this is the flip side. Revision 5 sends the municipality Whispering Pines to Sand Hills Farm Life. So this encompasses the entire municipality within Sand Hills Farm Life. And once again, the numbers to pay attention to. The utilization in 1920 for Sand Hills Farm Life is 140%, growing to 154 by 2023. The new Camp Easter Road School begins with utilization of 36% and grows to 43%. Looking at the minority column here, the range in the minority column is a maximum of 37% at the new school and a minimum of 16% at Sand Hills Farm Life. Not very balanced. So again, these questions were direct responses to questions that were raised in the community forum and in the online forum, and so we thought we'd prepare some data for you to look a little deeper into that.
So the third group of feedback questioned, okay, what is the purpose of the new school on Camp Easter Road? What was the purpose of that school? The purpose of the school is to relieve crowding at Sand Hills Farm Life and Bass Lake View. So the questions from parents were, then how did Carthage and Cameron get involved in those changes? Could we re-examine the Carthage-Cameron changes in light of stability for students? Is it really necessary to do a bunch of moves or domino moves to meet the intended purpose of relief of crowding? Okay, so we have looked at that, and we're going to show, we've got some changes in draft 2 that directly address that concern that came from the advisory council and from the parents. And then a second related bit of information or feedback was, are we relieving Sand Hills Farm Life enough the first year? And so we did look at that too, and so we've got an additional change in draft 2 that we want to show you, okay? So, let's get to draft 2. This is on slide 11, and we'll start with the data, okay? We've got 4 schools, 4 schools in the impact list, and remember the first set of data is the current data, and then the second set of data is the end result of the draft 2 changes I'm going to show you on the map in just a minute, but let's focus on the data. Starting in the minority percentage. The current situation has our minority percentage ranging by 18 points, okay? From a high of 35 to a low of 17%. In draft 2, we've tightened that up. We've got it more balanced to a range of 13 points. Moving over to the utilization column, in the current situation, we have a huge range of 67 points from the most crowded at 144% to the least crowded at 77. I feel like draft 2 is doing a really good job balancing utilization because we've reduced that range to 32 points. Okay? And remember, this is just step 1 in a multi-year process. And then the proficiency numbers, remember we're just showing you one of several pieces of data, but the proficiency numbers are fairly balanced. Okay, we haven't made the situation worse. So what is different in draft 2 from draft 1? All right, so if you look on slide 12, remember the picture on the left is the current attendance areas. The colors represent the current schools. The red lines represent the current attendance areas. And the picture on the right is now draft 2. There's 3 areas of change, starting with Cameron and Carthage. In draft 1, that attendance line that divides Cameron and Carthage, we had it flipping and flopping back and forth. In draft 2, there is no change along that attendance line between Cameron and Carthage. For stability, we felt like that feedback from parents was important, and it was not necessary to make those flip-flop changes that we had going on up there. Secondly, when we did the analysis of Whispering Pines, and we do feel for communities that want to stay together, but when they're so large, it makes it really tough. But if you look at Whispering Pines in conjunction with the feedback, could we provide a little more relief for Sand Hills farm life? We said, okay, we could add a little bit of Whispering Pines to the school on Camp Easter Road. So if you'll look above, what is that lake we went above? This might be where we look at the detailed map in the back, or can you? We had draft 1 was under the lakes, and draft 2 now goes above the westernmost lake. Okay, you probably want to look on your laptop at the detailed map in the back so you can zoom in there. But we have, in draft 2, we have included a little more of Whispering Pines into the new school on Camp Easter Road. Okay, again, trying to get that community together, but more importantly, making sure that Sand Hills farm life is getting the relief it needs. Okay? And then the third change from draft 1 to draft 2 has to do with Vass Lakeview and Cameron. Vass Lakeview needs relief, okay? That was one of our primary goals. And Cameron has the opportunity to help with that relief. And so there is an area of Vass Lakeview that is proposed here in draft 2 to go to Cameron. Do you see it there? Remember, the red line is the old attendance area and the color represents the new attendance area. So those are the 3 changes that we felt comfortable in making in draft 2 that aligned with the guiding principles. Any questions on the map?
If I might make 2 points at this stage. First of all, I want to do compliment Laura and Mike. I want to remind the board, we had a hurricane, and that meant that all of the input sessions, the community forum and the advisory meeting, were pushed till very late in the month. And so what we have this evening is the best we can do, that when we have the community forum this coming Wednesday night, there'll be larger versions of this for everybody to evaluate. And again, we're a month away from presentation of the draft 3, and we're 2 months away from approval. So I want to beg everyone's forgiveness for us not having larger maps, but I think we can. Can we not enlarge the screen just a little bit? I think if you go to plus and then just sort of center that, we may be able to get that a little bit bigger.
If I can advance to the end,
Okay.
there is a better definition map.
There we go. And that one we might even be able to enlarge, because we don't need all that Carthage area up top up there. There we go. And then we have to just kind of roll it up a bit. There you go, John. Thank you. The other point I want to make, too, is that if you look at John's presentation here, and I hope I'm not stealing anybody's thunder, you'll see the capacity of Cameron increases by 2023 to 400. We've made this clear at the previous community forum. Board members know it, but other members of the public that are watching the meeting this evening may not know, well, how does that happen? Cameron is a unique school in that its core capacity exceeds its classroom capacity. We can add another 110 to 120 students at Cameron and still have the core capacity for that. And so we are looking at, when we are done with that nice 6-classroom modular unit at Northmore, when we're finished with the Northmore project, this is a bought and paid for modular unit with 6 classrooms, with a brand-new playground moved over into a underutilized field that we have at Cameron. We can put that extra 6 classrooms back in the back, right behind the administration building. Nice, safe location for it. Bathrooms included, just a nice structure that we could, at very relatively low cost, expand the capacity at Cameron. And this would address a concern, outstanding concern that we've had for some time, that the school on Camp Easter Road, being on the west side of Vass, limits its ability to render relief to all the growth occurring in Sinclair and Woodlake. And so I think that necessity's been the mother of invention through this process. We've recognized that. I have spoken to the Cameron faculty about this and sort of alerted them to some of our considerations here. And so this move is just part of us making good use of the resources we already have at hand, and then trying to prepare us for the future. If over time we find that extra 6-classroom modular unit is something that's permanent, then we can, in a future capital plan, we can look at putting a permanent addition down there. But it certainly is one that I have watched sort of percolate through this process, and I think it's one that adds a lot of value. So.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. And we show that on slide 13, the data slide again, and this is the larger picture. You see where the Cameron 23-24 capacity is at 400, which puts their utilization from that 103 in 1920 to 84% by 23-24. And then if you go from the before and after range on utilization, our current situation by 23-24, we have a utilization range of 89 points, from a low of 71 to a high of 158. And draft 2 does a really good job of balancing utilization among these 5 schools with a range of 13 points.
I will also build on that to draw your attention to Vass Lakeview in 23-24, 95%. Every scenario that Numerics and staff have worked through have shown consistently the same struggle with Vass Lakeview and its location. Its location at the cutoff point of the throat of the county that heads down to Woodlake and Sinclair, et cetera, down there. is the location driving that up. Previously, a couple years ago, I presented to the board that that is another facility similar to Cameron. It's very easy at that school to take its core capacity to 800 and then add classrooms. The interior of the building requires very little modification at Vast Lakeview to get that facility to 800. So by that time, 23, 24, we would want to be discussing the opportunity at Vast Lakeview to increase their core capacity to accommodate the growth. So Cameron and Vast Lakeview both provide opportunity to increase their capacities without sacrificing core capacity.
I would add that I think our approach is prudent as well. We're not panicking, we're not rushing to promote another expensive project at Vast Lakeview. This allows us a couple of years to see what's going to happen at Woodlake. Because the disaster at Woodlake with Hurricane Matthew occurred in relatively short order before the last ORED study. This will allow another in-depth ORED deep dive regarding projections, and we'll be able to then reevaluate where we stand at that point to see what impact that might have before we start to elevate that priority. Because we do have Pinecrest High School, Union Pines High School, Carthage Elementary. We have some other major projects we have to be keeping our eyes on.
I'm not at all trying to be disrespectful. I'm trying to be devil's advocate a little bit here. But why would I, as a parent, want to take my child out of a school to go to another school to put them in a modular unit when I can have a new school? Do you know what I'm saying? So yeah, why would I want to do that? I mean, we're building this new school, so we're getting rid of those. So why would I want to put a modular unit for my kid to go there?
If I could, because I'm the one that just went that
Yeah.
direction, and these guys weren't prepared for that
Yeah.
one, so.
No, and that's
let me
just something to
address
think about. That's not for you really to necessarily answer me, but that's just something that you're going to get.
I think it's fair, and it's a fair question like any number of questions. I think any parent that whose child lives closer to one school than another, why would I want to go to a school that's farther away than one that's closer? We're not going to put 6 different modular units. When we think of the modular units we're trying to get rid of, we're thinking about the ones at Vast Lakeview and Sand Hills Farm Life currently. But we have a modular unit at Pinecrest High School that when you're inside of it, it doesn't feel any different than one of the other classrooms we have.
Yeah, but it's not connected.
It's not connected, but neither is any other building at Cameron. It is a campus-style school, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different buildings. This would add a 6th one that would enable you to have time. But children in that building would not leave that building any more frequently than children in any of the other buildings. So unless we connected all the buildings at Cameron, we would be building a separate facility there anyhow. And for the time being, as a board member, you have to work within constraints. We are working with ORED data that was just validated in January, but this is still a plan that was approved by this board in 2014. And your staff has made the best of balancing the restrictions and obstacles with the need for 4 years. Let us not forget our recent history. What we have at Vast Lakeview is a situation that has emerged where we have pulled as many children out of Vast Lakeview as we can into the new school. We
Right.
simply cannot pull any more in there. And our parents have raised reasonable questions about, that's not gonna be enough. Within a very short period of time, you've gotta do something. Now, if the commissioners or the state gives us enough money to do more at Cameron than to move a perfectly sound 6 modular unit from Northmore to Cameron, then we'll be more than happy to do that. But between now and 2023-24, if these projections hold, based on the ORED data in January, we're going to need something and need something fast, right about the time we also need to be doing something with Pinecrest, Union Pines, Carthage, you've got the ACC you've got to revisit. There's a number of issues here. We can't just fixate on just one part of the county.
It's just something to think about, because I know that's going to be a question.
Oh,
that's
I've
gonna
thought
arise.
about that.
Yeah,
Believe me.
it's going to be.
I thought about that, but I also know that the school board has a school with a core capacity of 400. And our county commissioners asked some tough questions 1 year ago. And this is a case where, back then, I had a very strong answer about the fact that we needed to move forward to where we are today. If they asked me the same question about Cameron, I'm afraid that I would not have a strong answer, because I do have a means to address putting another 120 children there. And the only thing that I give up is that they're gonna be in a modular unit, but it's gonna be a modular unit that feels like a regular building. That would be my response, well thought of for months.
Very good. All right, we want to take a minute and just review the timeline with you. 2 days from now, we're going to take draft 2 over to Vass Lakeview for a parent engagement meeting. We're inviting all the parents to attend. They did such a good job last time, and we look forward to their feedback. We'll meet with the advisory committee again on October the 15th. We'll take all the feedback and the online feedback. I think that goes live today. Tomorrow, online feedback. We'll look at all the feedback. We'll work and come back with, on October the 29th, with what becomes the superintendent's recommendation for the attendance area for the new school on Camp Easter Road. Okay? And then we have subsequent meetings after that until the final date for board action is December the 10th. So we have the public meeting coming up this Wednesday. You guys have scheduled a public hearing on November 15th, one more time for parents to have their say and provide feedback. You have a work session on December 3rd for any tweaks that you're going to do before you vote on December the 10th. And then one thing we want to mention, remember this is a multi-year project that we're working on, and so we put at the bottom that, woo-hoo, we'll be back in February to start this again. But it's gone well this year. The parents have been good, the advisory council has been good, you guys have been great, but it will start again, right around the corner in February, okay? And then, I told you, just reminded you about the appendix, the detailed maps that are in the appendix. And Mr. John, have we hit everything? Have we missed anything?
No, if you could go back one slide, Mike. Just again, you seen this last time when we came before you. Mike was able to put together kind of a density heat map on where these K-5 students reside. And you can kind of get a good feel through this. I encourage you and everyone else who's evaluating and looking at this to reflect upon this throughout their process. It really helps you understand the reasoning why we're building these new schools, why there are 800 students, and the opportunities they bring forth. So.
John, is there any way we can draw the lines of where the new lines would be on the density map?
The proposed on top of that,
Yeah.
I'd have to ask Mike.
I mean, just so people can see that?
The current proposed draft.
Yes, sorry.
If I played with my phone just right up here trying to pull this up, we're not linked on our agenda to these maps.
No,
So,
we're not at this point. This is going to be linked tonight to it, again, because of the shortened time with the impacts of
Understood.
the
Just wanna make
storm,
sure it gets
the
there.
short time they had, literally, we were working on this up until about 2 o'clock.
While you were in the school improvement plan sessions, they were working on this, because I didn't see it until this morning.
I just want to make sure the link gets there, so my
Yes.
eyes are telling me these maps are not big enough.
When we are linked, will Stacy be able to get an answer to her question?
Yes, we will amend
Okay.
it by including that additional heat map in there.
That might take a while.
I was just
That's
gonna
not
say-
In a
happen.
couple days.
It's not going to happen
Yeah.
Yeah, I
today.
was gonna say.
Takes a
you
little
don't-
while to
yeah.
cook.
Yeah.
Why don't we just save that one for the community forum? That'd be tight enough. So the community forum's gonna be a tight turnaround as it is, and let's just stick with what we've presented this evening and then present that next month in the appendix. And then for those that want to see it, if Mike can get it done in time for the forum, then let's aim for that.
Will do.
I just want to say thank you for answering the questions that came up at the community forum, that first forum. I think it was very helpful to see the options, when you answer the questions, what that means for the different options. And I think I know that adds additional analysis, but I think it's important that we have that information as we go forward with this. I feel like it's a very stepwise process, and I appreciate the work that you all have done so quickly, given the short turnaround.
And with the new form so quickly coming, I just feel like we were just at it, so.
know, right?
So, thank you for all you've been doing.
Are there any other comments or questions from board members?
We would appreciate, board member by board member, any feedback, please. We'd just like to hear from everybody, just our, what everybody's comfort level is with the direction that we're going, or what we've presented, not an endorsement or anything, just feedback.
Do you want to start, Bruce?
Appreciate the willingness to explore all of the possible options that came up from the comments of the parents at the community forum, the advisory council meeting, and so forth. And this is not the final version, and I think that you are allowing the people to make their own observations as to the ramifications of one option over another option. Something that's impressed me tremendously, sitting in on the advisory committee discussions, is the participation of the parents and the candid comments and realizations that this ain't easy. But you have made extraordinary efforts to take something that's not easy and put it into a format where you can see the whack-a-mole at work. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate the fact that what we heard at the community forum and what we heard for the, excuse me, the advisory council committee were similar questions, and the fact that you tried to answer those questions for everyone. It's very difficult to try and put all this with numbers and positions and locations to get it all so it all evens out. But I appreciate the fact that you're trying to answer what the families and the community wants to know.
I am very comfortable with the way the process is proceeding.
Well, I'm comfortable as well, except that I can't see it. So I'll go home and study tonight, but like Betty said, I think it's just really important that we answer the questions that the parents and the communities have, make sure they understand why certain decisions have to be made or not made. And, obviously we want to serve the greatest number of children in the best way possible. And I think we're on that path, and so I'll go home and blow these maps up great big and sit and study for a while tonight. But thank you for what you've accomplished in such a short time.
I pretty much said everything that I was going to earlier, but just again, people, I'm glad that you're taking people's input, and it is a Jell-O effect. So we're not going to please everybody, and it's going to move certain ways, and everyone has a personal story, and that's hard to do. That's hard to please everyone. So I appreciate everything that you guys are doing for us.
And I don't know if this is the appropriate time to say it, but we have to remember we do have a transfer policy too. So when it comes down to individual stories that become very difficult for specific reasons, that we have to consider that as a tool in the toolbox. It's not only the fact that we have these attendance lines, but we have other tools in the toolbox. So that's just a good reminder. All right. No further questions for this group. I thank you.
Administration has no further presentation, Madam Chair.
Okay. It's time for board comments, I believe. Get back to the agenda. Where did I put it?